What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 2 live stream for the Genesis Open. And boy, oh boy, was that quite the day. I mean, Tiger Woods going out there, surprising the world with his play. I mean, just the look on JT and Rory's faces there on 18 really told you everything you needed to know. I mean, they were beside themselves. The fact they all three made birdie was just the perfect showcase for Big Cat. So hats off to him. Exceeded my expectations, that's for damn sure. And overall, we've got ourselves quite the solid leaderboard shaken up. In terms of DFS, guys like Max Homa are carrying us right now. A few other guys up there in the top 25 like you'd expect. And on the prop side, if Scott Stallings could have made a damn 2-foot putt or a 5-foot putt on the first or multiple 10, 15-foot putts, would have had a massive day on the prop side. But instead, Scott Stallings let me down on a lot of like 4 or 5 leg cards. For some reason, a lot of my like big time exposure yesterday, actually today, I should say, I'm used to doing these in the morning. I have to say, nice to be back with the night crowd out there, which I know gives you guys a little bit less of a heads up, but more of a shelf life when it comes to replay value. So welcome to all the night owls that I see here for a lot of the live streams there. If you're watching this in the morning, right, on replay, that's okay as well, right? We love you guys over there too. But now that we're getting into the fall swing, they're starting this tournament a lot earlier than a lot of the other events. We'll be doing these live streams at night, right? Like we used to for most of the live streams here on the channel, just to give you guys plenty of heads up before the event. So looking forward to it. There are a few guys still on the golf course. I have to say like 5, 6 guys that haven't finished up at this point. So that's another issue to deal with, right? It's not going to change anything. It's not like we're between rounds 2 and 3 where there could be a potential cut line impact or players that, right, are going to be in the player pool or not. So there's nothing crazy going on. Let's take a look at the golf course. Let's get this started. First off, welcome in everybody down in chat. Love to see all the faces down there. We've got Jack Fisher says first time you've seen a golf tournament outside the majors. I'm trending for quite some time, especially with that finish, man. I mean, I couldn't help but smile. I had a lot of buddies over at my place. We were watching the golf, just drinking a few beers, sitting back, enjoying ourselves. And that last, I'd say 20, 25-minute stretch, we were all jumping off the house, bouncing off the walls there for the Big Cat. That was just, and I'm sure everyone around the world, right, was just waiting for that. And I sure as shit did not expect that, right? I'm not going to go out there victory lap, try and pretend like I saw that coming. I did not. So I love it, though. It's like I said, that's why I'm grinning from ear to ear over here. Just great for the sport in general. So love to see it. James Romanowski says, hey, man, just wondered if your logo stands for anything. Yeah, it stands for Grand Slam, Luke. So back in the day, I used to have a knack for hitting Grand Slams. Didn't hit a bunch of home runs, but for whatever reason, had a disproportionate amount of Grand Slams. So one day I had 2 back-to-back Grand Slams in a row. And at that point, they started calling me that. So it's stuck. I'm using it since then. I haven't played baseball since I was like 19. So it's been a while, but yeah, that's the nickname. Valid question for sure. I don't mention it all that much. Tony says, you're glad you took Tiger from last night's prize picks and swept the board. Okay, nice. You love to see it. That's great to see, man. And yeah, honestly, I almost took his over at 2.5 birdies. That would have been pretty sweet. Love that you swept the prize picks board. That's awesome to hear. Jake says Stallings had a day. Yeah, I mean, the 5-foot miss on hole number 1, which at that point when Tiger was on, I wasn't really sweating props, that kind of thing. I was just kind of sitting back with my buddies. So I wasn't sitting in front of Shot Tracker, right? I wasn't sitting on Discord with a lot of you guys out there. I was just hanging out with the bros. But I did check in on Stallings at one point. I saw the 5-foot miss on hole number 1. He had a 2-foot miss on hole number 2, which ended up being a 3-putt on from 20 feet on a par 5. And then just multiple misses from like 7 to 15 feet. So that was brutal, to say the least. That's all I got for that. Kyle says, morning, night, doesn't matter. Luke for life. Love it, Kyle. Yeah, if you're able to stay up late and wake up early, I'm one of those people. I don't need much sleep. So I'm usually up to like 1, 2 a.m. Usually wake up at like 9 a.m. So yeah, it works for me. So I'm glad it works for you too. Steven says, night owls roll. Absolutely. Ben says, did you miss something by starting Keegan? Yeah, I didn't use Keegan Bradley this week. Did you miss something? I don't think you did. Like he wasn't the worst course fit, but he wasn't worth all the steam that he was getting. But you got to remember, it's Keegan Bradley at the end of the day. He's going to have stretches where he has a few good events, but he's never worthy of being chalk. And I think he was like 12% owned or something like 11% owned this week, something in that range, which was a little bit too high for me. So I don't think it was an egregious play, but I definitely wasn't there myself. What's going on, Robert? Love to see you down there. What's going on, Ben? Yeah, I stay up late anyways, boys. Whether I'm playing video games, whether I'm doing golf analysis, I'm going to be up anyways there. So you said morning streams are too early. Yeah, I get that. It's too early for me. I need a few coffees in the system to get the job done. But around these days, I've had a few rum and cokes with my buddies. I got one right here, actually. This mug right here is like my favorite mug ever. You probably can't see it on the camera, but it has pictures of my cats on it. So maybe when I get the drink a little bit further down, I can show you guys the pictures. They're quite adorable. But yeah, we're chilling. I love myself a little night stream. Cash Out says Matsuyama under 70 strokes. So yeah, I actually haven't looked at the prize picks board at all. We're going to go through my DFS projections. I have all those completed, my player pool and whatnot. At the end, it's going to be a live reaction to the board. So if Matsuyama is at 70, that feels just about right? The scoring average is about even par today. Matsuyama, much better than average player. Yeah, I don't hate the under there at all. So that's just my live reaction. Of course, I haven't gone through the board yet. I don't have any slips in myself. But yeah, towards the end of this live stream, we will be going through the entire prop board and essentially giving you my live reaction there. So if there's any props that I want to go ahead and hurry into slips, you're going to see me entering those live on stream as well. So it'll be fun. So if you prop guys, just sit back. It'll probably be like, I'd say 20 minutes until maybe 25 minutes until we get fully into the prop side, but sit tight. What's going on, Travis? You said, what a day of great golf. I'm looking forward to it too. Should be a lot of fun out there tomorrow. Max says, it's painful to watch Kuchar play, but that old timer can still fire a low number. Yeah, it's okay when you play him in DFS, right? I played him. I had him in about 10% of lineups. It's not like I went crazy on the old man, right? I know better than to play a bunch of Matt Kuchar, but he's played well at this course before. Even over the last few years, he's been really solid around this course. In fact, he is a top, I think it's like a second place finish over the last 4 years. Sometimes there's just those horses for courses, right? That just are able to outlast, the doom of time out there and get the job done. So yeah, I like it, Maxwell. It's painful to watch. I'm not going to be playing him in Showdown. That's for damn sure. Because one thing that's for sure is you don't play Kuchar when he's chalky and when he's getting a bunch of steam. It's still Matt Kuchar at the end of the day, right? The old timer, the dusty old timers, as they say. Tiger was awesome today. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I got you. You said for those on the West Coast, yeah, it's huge because I know like 9-10 a.m., right, isn't so bad for us East Coast boys. But 7 a.m. over there on the West Coast, I understand the gripe for sure. Gus says, thoughts on Finau? He's a good DFS play. I don't know if I'd play him on the prop side. I played him for round one. He was one of my bigger misses today. I had him and Homa under strokes. Homa obviously smashed, which was great. But then Tony Finau on the back nine just completely fell apart. So if you're talking about for DFS, I think that he's a solid play. He's going to be relatively low owned, has the upside. But on the prop side, I'm a little bit more worrisome about it. Julian says, when is the book dropping? So yeah, still have the book over here, the sample. I actually sent back my thoughts on it and whatnot. I'm assuming in the next month and a half, 2 months. So I actually have a meeting with my publisher or connection to the publisher that I have, and I'm not talking directly to the publisher in the next week. So I'll have an answer for you next stream, next Wednesday for that. Jonathan says, I was just wondering if you were doing prize picks prop on the stream. Yeah, so I'm not going to be posting any slips here. I'm really just going to be going over my general thoughts. The actual write-up and the slips and the props that I'm playing are going to be posted on Patreon afterwards. So here, if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and fire on them. If you want my opinion on matchup props, specific props across the board, like somebody before asked about the Matsuyama prop, later on, feel free to ask about them. So yeah, I'll be posting the actual write-up on on Patreon later. But yeah, feel free to ask questions when we get to the prop side there. Damon says Finau is back to his classic 50% chance. Yeah, he's got that little toe-up putter there where he's putting honestly like a child, like somebody that doesn't know how to putt. He's got the heel of his club on the ground. He's got the toe of it off the ground. He's got to figure that out. It was working for him for a while there. I played him for strokes today, but I didn't play him in that many things. I don't hold grudges. Like I'll play him tomorrow if I need to. Particularly because I haven't looked at the strokes board yet. Particularly if they price him at like 70 strokes. Like if they give us a solid number on Pony Finau, I have no issues going back there. So I'm not going to hold grudges. And you said he destroyed all your slips. Damon, I know you do your own thing, Damon. I know you have your own analysis. You shouldn't be playing him in all your slips. If you're doing that, you shouldn't have anyone in all of your slips. That's not the plus EV way to play prize picks. Message me if you need advice on that. Bing says, yo, what's up? What's going on, Bing? Ben says, don't drop that mug like the helmet case. Oh my God. Now, yeah, I can't know. This is actually got like sentimental value and whatnot. The helmet case I couldn't give a shit for. So that's all right. What's going on? Cash out. Mark says, was always a bit cool on Max Homa, but he's slowly making you a believer. Yeah, this week I played him because obviously I told you guys, I was like, what else do you need to see to be convinced? I think if he finishes in the top 5 this week, just given that Tiger, right, is doing what he is at this point, it's an elevated event of all these elite tier players, it's going to be really hard for people to discount him. So yeah, Mark, I'm glad you're becoming a believer. He's just that good. What to do with Burns? You play him in DFS. We'll get there in a second for sure. And Travis says, did actually have a question. Can I ask in Discord too? New sub and follows. What's the number of players you're looking at in your player pool? So if I'm playing like 20 lineups, I'm probably looking at 16 to 18 players, but that's all dependent on your risk tolerance. So how much leverage you're looking to get on players. And then of course, your play style. Some people like to be a little bit more aggressive than others. Some people like to maybe lock a few players up top, right? And then maybe scatter shot down low. There's plenty of different ways to do it. But I guess like the general rule of thumb for myself would be like 16 to 18 players. That way you're taking like, let's say 6 guys, maybe $8,000 and above, and maybe 10 guys there in the 6 and 7K range. And a majority of those are going to be 7K golfers, right? You know, if you're only playing 20 lineups, you're probably only going to take 3, maybe 4 guys in the 6K range. And work around it that way. That'd be my advice. Jonathan says that Homa read was crazy today. Yeah, he went off. I'm glad that he went off. I'm sure that him being out there in first place is going to be more nerve-wracking for him than anybody else in the field. He said that this is like his dream event to go out there and win, which obviously he's gone out there and done before. But even as somebody that can go out there and become a repeat champion, I think it might get to him a little bit. So we'll see on Showdown. We'll see for rounds 3 and 4 how Max Homa holds up. I hope he does, right? I played him this week, but it's questionable, at least at this event. I think if it was any other event, I'd have no issues with it. I think he'd go out there and crush. Crush says, speaking of Crush, says, do you have any way to beat the bumps on Patreon? It's like Underdog is tapped into your write-ups. You have to turn on notifications. So if you don't have the app for Patreon, you don't have notifications on. Yeah, if you're like checking them every hour, you're getting them like 45 minutes late, you're going to have a hard time. But if you have the app, you have notifications on, you should be able to catch them before bumps because they give at least, I'd say like 5 minutes before you actually see them pulled off the board. That would be my advice. And a lot of times when they're first pulled off the board, which will happen usually in about like 5 minutes, they have an automated system on Underdog where after a certain amount of action comes in on props, they'll pull them. When that happens, they usually repost them in the next like 3 to 4 minutes. So if you're on there, right, shortly afterwards, after seeing the props, you can usually still get them in that time frame. So just keep that in mind. Underdog's weird about that. They do have that automated system, unlike Prize Picks, where they do all those bumps manually. Which I guess obviously is plus EV for them. I've been kind of like talking about that for a while. Like I'm surprised that they don't have the automated bumping going on, but Underdog certainly has that going. Gus says, yeah, Finau to make the cut in you're scared. Yeah, I can see why you'd be scared, but he could easily make the cut. He's like 1 shot off the cut line. He's a much better than average player. So be nervous about it. That's more than reasonable, but he could easily get there too. Big Cat was crushing it off the tee. Yeah, we'll talk about him a little bit later specifically. But the off the tee play was nuts. He was out driving Rory McIlroy on almost every single hole, and JT was blowing it past him. In fact, I don't know if you guys saw this. Tiger Woods handed JT a tampon after out driving him on a hole today, literally on the tee box in front of cameras. They have it on camera. There's a picture that Rick Run Good actually put on Twitter of the instance. Not only did Tiger play well, the iron play was there. The putter at the end heated up. You could tell that mentally that he's back. Like if he's out there rizzing players right in between holes, and I know he's good buds with JT, right? It means no harm. Uh, that means he's got some confidence. I love to see it. Anyways, we'll get back to chat a little bit later. I do have to get back into this wind over here, which the wind for tomorrow is a little bit of a question mark. So I hate Windfinder. It used to be like my bread and butter when it came to this, but last week it let us down, right? Rounds 2 and 3, they were calling for crazy wind gusts, and they never came, right? And across the industry, they were undecided last week, and that's kind of what we're getting here. So on Windfinder, you can see between 9 to 11 a.m., so just a 2-hour window, so nothing crazy going on here. They do have a few wind gusts coming through. The sustained winds don't really rise, right? They're just in the 6 to 7 mile an hour range, but you get between 20 to 12 mile an hour wind gusts between 9 to 11 a.m., which could be a slight problem for maybe like 2-3 holes, perhaps maybe like 4 holes for a lot of the players out there. But a lot of the other sites aren't calling for that. So you go over here to Willy Weather. You'll see in the morning they're calling for like 10 to 9 mile an hour winds. In the afternoon they have it dropping off, but these are the sustained winds. There's none of those 15 to 18 mile an hour wind gusts that you were seeing over there on Windfinder, right? You can see in that time frame it's just right around 10 miles an hour. So again, it's about half of what they have over there. You look over here at Weather Underground, they have it flat the entire day. In fact, from right around like 6 a.m., which I believe they're teeing off like 6:40 local time over there, to the end of the day, it's within 2 miles an hour over the entire day in terms of your range. Go over to AccuWeather, you'll see the same kind of thing. In the morning, it's 8 to 9 miles an hour. At 9 a.m., it's between 8 to 9 miles an hour in terms of your wind gusts. At noon, it's 8 to 9 miles an hour. At 3, it's 7 to 8. And when they're finishing up right around 5, it's between 6 to 7 miles an hour. So it really depends what weather site you trust the most. And at this point, there's not one that I'm really leaning on over the others, which has me believing that the winds should be stagnant throughout the day. If there's going to be maybe a slight little windstorm that comes through for maybe like an hour, maybe an hour and a half there early, so be it. But you got to remember that this Windfinder station is the Santa Monica Pier. If you go over here to the map, it's the closest to the Pacific Palisades. If you zoom in here, there's one over here that is slightly closer, but they don't have the super forecast. Or actually, they do, but it's the exact same. So you go over for Thursday. On Friday, they have like a slight little hour window of winds over there. But if you go over here on the map, the ones that are red are like the trusted, like actual wind locations. There's one up here that's in the mountains that is actually up in the hills. So I don't know if it's going to be as accurate. That's why I was using the one over here that's gray. I was using the one over here at Santa Monica, is it's at sea level, which of course, as opposed to up in the mountains, I think it would be a little bit more accurate. All of them are kind of calling for the same thing, just like, and maybe it's just Windfinder, the kind of models that they're using here, but they're all calling for like slightly higher winds there between like 9 to 11 a.m. And you can see this one, it's closer to like 10, 11 a.m. that they're calling for the higher winds. It's kind of hard to get a gauge on it. So at this point, I don't think there's going to be a huge advantage weather-wise across the board. As per usual, the guys in the morning are typically who we want to target anyways, as they have the more receptive greens. They have more pristine conditions, greens without scuff marks, POA that hasn't been able to bud throughout the day and get a little bit bumpier. And all of that is an advantage where that could more than make up for the difference in wind, right? Maybe the winds are slightly higher there for an hour, but then they have the easier greens, right? They have the more receptive targets to go out there and hit. I think it makes up for it. So in terms of an edge on Showdown, I'm playing it straight up. If you like somebody that's playing in the morning wave, you can get easy leverage to them. Play them. If that player's in the afternoon, they're low owned, and you think they're worth getting leverage to, I'm more than okay with playing them too. If you want to take a gamble and maybe take the PM guys, just hope that maybe Windfinder has really good meteorologists and hope that, they're spot on there with their analysis, then you can take the PM dudes, right? And honestly gamble on that being correct. But outside of Windfinder, there's not one piece of evidence across the board. I guess we'll say this right here. Over here in Willy Weather, they have going from 10 to 7 miles an hour. So I guess there's a 3 miles an hour difference, right, between the two waves. But that's next to nothing, right? That's not even going to be noticeable out there in the golf course. If you trust Windfinder, maybe you play those PM guys. It's just I don't trust them that much, particularly after what we saw last week. Let's go ahead, bring up the DFS projections now, and we'll catch up on chat as well. Let's do that. Bring up the projections, get them shared for y'all. Here we go. And let's see if there's any questions down in chat. So now's the time to talk about any plays you want me to do a deep dive on. We'll talk about ownership, strategy, that sort of thing. And we're going to go through this one a little bit more quickly. So we're not going to talk about every player in the field. More just going to focus on a few pieces of chalk that I think we need to manage. We'll talk about Big Cat a little bit later on, and anyone that you guys want to point out in particular. So just make sure you go ahead and put those down in chat. And then, like I said, in like 10, 15 minutes, we'll hop into the prop side. So let's see what's going on. Make sure you got those noties on. It's the only way to beat bumps. Yes, sir. And the app's a really good way to do that. If you download the app, it pretty much does it automatically. What's going on, Marco? Love to see you down there in chat. Cheers. Mike says, what do you think about Tiger at 73.5 strokes? I like him under. I haven't looked at the board yet, but I can tell you that is going to be a play. And if he's at 3 birdies again, I'd probably take the over there too. Ace says, under strokes over on birdies. Ace says, hey, Luke, what's up, bro? I didn't get to hear your card this week. What is it? So it's all of my core picks. I did go ahead and add a few guys in the bomb tier range. Actually, I can't even think of them off the top of my head. Let's see. If I see them, I'll remember. They were like 150 to 1 bombs, just like straight up like YOLO plays. It's mostly my core plays. Those are where all like my actual units are. Like I have 5 units on Rory McIlroy this week, multiple units on guys like Colin Morikawa, for example. I have 2 units on Will Zalatoris. I have half a unit on these bombs, and one's Mackenzie Hughes. So I got Mackenzie Hughes at 200 to 1. I put $500 on it. So that would be quite the win if it were to work out, but I'm not counting on it, obviously. And Austin Smotherman, I got him at 400 to 1. So those were absolute bombs, but it's mostly the core picks. Like I said, all of the actual units that I have in play, like, legitimate dollars, were just on my 4 main tier guys. So it's kind of boring. I know I just took a lot of the top tier guys, but so be it. It's kind of one of those weeks out there where you just bet the top of the board. Pete says, thoughts on Cam Young tomorrow? I love him tomorrow. I think he's going to be chalky, though. So to answer both questions here together, I like him, but yeah, he is getting ownership. A saving grace for Cameron Young is his actual ownership in GPPs wasn't that high. So he wasn't like mega chalk. I thought he might be. I thought he might be like 20, 25% owned. He came in closer to like 10%. So for round 2 showdown, a lot of my algorithm considers that ownership that they had there for 4-round contests. And I think we might get away with it, Maxwell. So yeah, you can see I have him at like nearly 17%, but it's doable. Everyone talking about Tiger, but Big Dick Rick is back, baby. You're right. You're 100% right. And he did it again. He went out there, shot 3 under par again today. Christ. I want him to play poorly, dude, so that next week at the Honda, I can bet him outright at something higher than 20 to 1. Because if he goes out there and he finishes in top 15 again in this field, he's going to be like 15 to 1 to win the Honda Classic. And then it's going to be hard for me to bet him. So, sweet and sour with Ricky this week. I kind of hope he falters tomorrow. Willett did okay. Yeah, I flagged him up the other day. I liked him. First, it was like the distance off the tee. It's the around the green play. So hopefully he keeps it up, Mark. Obviously, I think he's starting to trend in the right direction too. If you just take it as worldwide form, take a look at his worldwide form, he's starting to make a lot more cuts and, of course, flashing more in the top 10 as well. So I like what we're seeing so far, Mark. Let's not jinx it though. We got to see something there tomorrow too. Steven says, thoughts on Woods' fatigue, major or minor factor? Major factor because he has the short time in between, but he literally ran up the stairs at the end of the event. He wasn't limping all that much, at least in my opinion, for holes 15 through 18. I think it was slightly more noticeable than the front 9, but it wasn't like it was over there at the Masters, the PGA Championship for the first round. A lot of the, sporadic times that we've seen him ever since the injury, it looked a lot better today. So major factor, no doubt about it, because of the short time in between, but we'll see. He claims that he should be good to go, but he hasn't taken 1 day off from practice. And you have to think that a lot of his practice is going out there, maybe walking 18 holes, maybe on a flat course, right? So it's a little bit more of an ordeal. I mean, he had The huge hill on 9 that he had to walk up, the huge hill down 10 that he had to walk down, then those stairs up 18, of course, which are pretty rigorous for anybody, let alone somebody with a bum leg. We'll see. We'll see how he holds up. I think he'll be okay. To help you understand why Burns is a part of your pool, I look at the spreadsheet and he doesn't appear to be a good choice other than his ownership. It's Showdown. It's a single round sample size. So you've probably heard this a million times. Golf is one of the most random sports out there. What's the reason not to play Sam Burns? Your answer, right? And I think what you're going along with this is he shot +4 today. You don't think that, he's capable of turning that around? Of course he is, man. We've seen guys go out there like Jordan Spieth, right? Shoot 7 under par in round 1 and then miss the cut the next day, right? That's just how golf works. And if people out there are going to overreact to a 1-round sample size, you can see he's only 6.7% owned now, then so be it, right? That's a huge edge in Showdown. In fact, over the last 3 years, that's what's made me the most money in Showdown, really of anything out there, is just taking advantage of people's 1-round sample size overreactions. So to be honest with you, man, I have to completely disagree with the whole sentiment of the comment there, because he's not a poor play. He's the same play that he was coming into the week where, I think compared to the guys around him, he was a little bit overpriced, but now he's in the 8K range. He's priced where he should be, right? He's not priced above guys like Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay anymore, Sungjae Im, right? He's priced below them where he should be, and he's still mega low owned, right? The reason why he was low owned before was because he was mispriced, right? He was probably $500, $600 too expensive. That's no longer the case, and now the only reason he's low owned is because he had a piss poor day 1, right? The stats can even be off. He might even have been piss poor on approach. It could have been as dreadful as it could have been. I mean, he shot 82 in day 1. It really wouldn't have taken me off of him. I would still be okay with playing Sam Burns. I mean, I think of the Open Championship, I think he shot like 4 over par in day 1, and then day 2 shot 9 under par. Like, I think birdied like 6 of his first 8 holes at the Open Championship there on Friday. Ended up actually getting himself into the top 10 of the golf tournament, I believe, at that point. That happens all the time, and Sam Burns has done it before himself. So vehemently disagree with that. I mean, honestly, that's where like the edges in Showdown are, people making those kind of arguments. So I would just push back heavily on using that kind of thought process. Ace says, if Colin makes his 5-footers, he wins this tournament by 3 strokes. Yeah, he had that miss on hole number 2. I think it might have been hole number 11 for him, where it was like that 3-foot miss. That was brutal to watch. But then he had that one that dripped over the edge. I think it was there on hole 16 that he had, where he got bailed out by the golf gods. So they'll give, they'll take, they'll figure it out by the end of the day. That was pretty sweet. Wrong had a bad day. He did. It's golf, right? Just like Sam Burns. Mark says, thought Tiger was carrying less bulk today. He was hitting it a long way, though. So it looks like his chest a little bit more defined. It looks like his arms might even be a little bit more defined than they were before. Perhaps because he was on the crutches. I can just tell you from experience, when you're on crutches, you get relatively yoked. You get really strong with your upper half. So maybe that has to do with it. I don't know. Bro, Max Homa is 69 strokes a free square. Absolutely not. It's not a free square. Probably a lean towards the under, but not a lock. That's for sure. Do you think PM players, you had me off there with your wording there. So you're saying, do I like PM players more than the AM guys? If you had to break a tie, if you had perfect circumstances, everything even across the board, I would take the PM guy over the AM guy, but I don't imagine that happening very often. I mean, it would have to be really close for me to make that sort of tiebreaker, but honestly, I don't even think there's a huge edge to be had there. PD says, is Hideki a solid option? I think so. Relatively low ownership. Haven't backed Sam Burns all year, but will be all in on the Florida Swing tournaments. Yeah, play him at Valspar. First off, bet him outright at Valspar. Players Championship, maybe not the best fit just because of his driving accuracy, but I really like him at Valspar to 3-peat. I'll definitely be betting him there, that's for sure. But let's talk into the board and kind of hitting on that comment before. I'm not trying to pick on you there, Ben, but that's literally the edge with round 2 Showdown is after round 1. All of the ownership over here is almost directly correlated to a player's score. So let's take a look at this. Max Homa, right? 21% owned. Now he's one of the chalkiest players. Now he was already relatively high owned. He was like 16 to 18% owned in GPPs, depending on what contest you were in. but now he's 21% owned. Now he's the cream of the crop when it comes to that ownership percentage. Guys like John Rahm, right? 6 under par, no surprise, right? He's significantly higher owned than a Rory McIlroy and guys like Scottie Scheffler, JT, and Xander, right? That all had decent days, right? All got it under par, but they're not 6 under par like John Rahm. So when you're trying to figure out who's going to be the highest owned when it comes to round 2, round 3 showdown is the same kind of thing. Just look at the leaderboard. And sure, guys that played well in one round are probably slightly more likely than some of their peers to play well in round 2, but we're not playing a cash contest. Okay, I'll remind you, we're looking for ceiling performances, right? We're looking to try and win GPPs, or at least most of us out there, right? When we're playing round 2 showdown, are thinking through that sort of lens. We're looking for guys that can shoot 6, 7 under par, right? Like a John Rahm, a Max Homa did in round 1. How rare is it for guys to go out there and back that up, right? To go out there, shoot 6 under par 2 days in a row. It doesn't happen very often, because when it does, it's extremely notable, right? That's all we're talking about between rounds 2 and 3 is how dominant X player was, right? Whether it was Seamus Power at Pebble Beach last year, Joaquin Niemann at this very event last year did the same kind of thing. Those performances really stick out, and you remember them, right? They're memorable. And just don't count on that happening is it gets the point that I'm trying to get to. So the pivots, the guys that are lower owned, just like a 4-round contest, are almost always the guys you want to get to, but even more so when you consider those factors. So Rory McIlroy, well, I know he's not super low owned compared to like a John Rahm. That's why I'm making that distinction. He's going off in the morning. Like I said, I'm not really looking at the PM guys more than the AM guys. So I'm looking at that. Scottie Scheffler, right, he's 13% owned. I think he's more than worth getting to. That entire kind of theme is carried throughout my entire player poll. So I'm looking at Patrick Cantlay. He's probably the highest owned player outside of Rory that I'm getting to. There's one other super chalky guy that I will be playing for tomorrow, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But I'm okay with the Cantlay and Rory's of the world, right? You're going to have to take somebody up top that's getting some sort of ownership. Just maybe don't pair them together, right? So if you're taking Rory McIlroy, maybe don't play him with Patrick Cantlay at $9,200. That right there is right a 20% owned guy, and then a 19% owned guy right there. Going to make it a little bit harder to differentiate. It's not impossible. You could still make it work, right? You're just going to have to take probably 2 guys that are 5% or lower owned to compensate for that. But maybe if you take a Rory, just maybe take a pivot in the 9K range, right? Or if you want to take a Patrick Cantlay, pivot to Scottie Scheffler up top, that sort of thing. It's not all that difficult to do. Just keep those few things in mind when you're building your lineups up top. Let's see. Let's move down into the bottom of the 9K, 8K range, where you can see there's a lot of yeses over here. A lot of players that I'll be getting to, and a lot of times with these showdown slates, these balanced lineups where you're just living in the lower end of the 9K range, mid to higher tier of the 8K range, wins you GPPs because pricing is so soft. A lot of these guys are like $300, $400 cheaper than they were for 4-round contests. And like, for example, Sam Burns, Cam Young, a few people already mentioned him down in chat. Jordan Spieth, right? Had a horrible day today, but looked a little bit worse because he missed, I believe, at least 5 putts from less than 7 feet. Just if he just makes those, right, he's under par. And I know that's asking a lot from Jordan Spieth, but just a few weeks ago, right, was your first round leader. Flashed a little bit last week there at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So $8,700. These are the kind of guys that I'm trying to jam into lineups. Will Zalatoris, the ball striking was unbelievable today. Was hitting just shot after shot to the 10 to 15 foot range. Missed a few 5-footers, which you're going to get from Will Zalatoris, but was stroking it from that 10 to 15 foot range. So I'm extremely encouraged by what I saw from him in round 1. But Matty Fitz, he's going to be super low owned because of his round 1 performance, which just really wasn't as bad as it looks on paper, especially from the shots gained perspective. Hideki Matsuyama, 13% owned. These are the kind of plays that I really want to leverage myself to. So up top, you can see I'm playing a lot of these top tier options, but I am going to have lineups that start with maybe a Cantlay or maybe start with a Xander Schauffele as my most expensive player. And I tried to take 2 or 3 of the guys here in the 8K range and really just strengthen my lineup towards the middle to top end of the board. Let's catch up on chat, see what's going on. Trunks Slam and Patrick Rogers. based on him failing and being chalked today. So you're going to play him to try and mush him. I like it, Travis. If you're trying to mush him out there, do a service for the community. That's a noble thing to do. We'll salute you tomorrow if he ends up going out there and ejecting. Yeah, I can't get there, man. He's just too donkey of a play for me. No hard feelings. I want you to be straight up. Absolutely. And yeah, I'm not trying to be harsh about it, but essentially, like, I understand the thought process, but people overdo it, right? So, like, let's say you just took main slate ownership, right? And people 2% adjusted for the round performance, right? So let's say like Rory McIlroy was like 20% owned coming into the week. Let's just use that as a barometer. And he had a really good round, shot like 10 under par today, something like that. Let's say he was only like 22% owned as opposed to 20% owned. I would be okay with getting to Rory, right? Then it would make plenty of sense. But if he shot 10 under par today, right, he'd be 30, 35, maybe even 40% owned, right? He'd be mega chalk, right? People are way too reactive to the score. So understand it from the, analysis perspective, but people just overdo it. They overreact essentially when it comes to their ownership. That's the idea there. Yeah, it was the other columns are low on him. Yeah, it's the recent form. So last week, the waste management was like the first week that he's played remotely well in the last 3-4 months at this point. So yeah, a lot of it's just sample size things, like last 36 rounds haven't been that favorable for Sam Burns. He's actually losing on approach over that stretch. But yeah, last week he kind of like shed that, got back to his normal identity and played a lot better. That's for sure. Kyle says, JJ Spawn, somebody that you still have your eye on, played well today. I don't know if I'm going to play a ton of them for Showdown tomorrow. In fact, I'm almost positive I don't have them in my lineups right now. Let me double check. 99% sure of that. I'll be past him. Yeah, he's way more expensive. Where are you at, JJ? There's JT Spawn. And JT posting. We need JJ Spawn. Where's you at, buddy? I've definitely passed it multiple times. Let's just Control F, make our lives a lot easier. There it is. So I don't have him in my pool. It's not like he's mega chalky either. So it's not really ownership based. It's only 2.2% owned. But I mean, I hope he plays well. I'm not counting on it. He's not that type of guy to go out there, shoot like -3, -7, -5 over 4 rounds. He's more the type of guy to go like -3, right? Maybe, I don't know, even -1, then maybe go out there, shoot -3, -4. Just, I don't know. It's a gut feeling thing for me. You could definitely play him though. Yeah, he's super cheap. So the price tag didn't go up despite the good round. It's pretty solid. Fowler's at 3.5 birdies. You'd have to like that given how he's played. So I'd lean on the over. Not sure I'm going to take it in my own slips, but definitely lean on the over. Tom Kim fade was a good call. I actually ended up playing him last second. So Maxwell, it's funny you say that on stream. So if you guys listen to me, smart idea. I ended up adding him to lineups, and I don't hate it. I'm still okay with it, right? He's like even par, right? Yeah. So it's not like he's out of the golf tournament by any means. When I was looking at some of the Quail Hollow tapes, watching the highlights and whatnot, that's a course where you have to, quote unquote, be long off the tee. And Tom Kim absolutely destroyed some of the world's best ball strikers. So I don't think he's out of it this week. So, hey, maybe you're reverse mushing it and it'll help me. I actually did play him. So we'll see about that. He's on the cut line. So it's definitely to be determined there. That's for sure. Nick says, what are some good birdie or better matchup props? We'll look at those when we get to the props. Hole 10 locations just came out. The hole 10 location is going to be brutal for the guys that play the left fairway. Okay. That's good to know. We'll take a look at the pin sheet when we get into props for sure. Good idea on that. And I'll take a look at hole 10. That's a good, if they're laying up, they're probably not doing the right thing to begin with. I'll say that. Justin Thomas got brutalized by laying up today. Michael says, what do you think about Fleetwood? I think he's a decent play, but I think he's going to get some ownership because he had that decent first round. He started atrocious, was over par, I think, early between his like first 5-6 holes, but ended up well under par. Outside of 10 and 17, locations actually seem easy for a Friday. Yeah, so the tour official they had on ESPN Plus early in the morning mentioned that they weren't going to use any of the hard locations till Saturday and Sunday. He said that like all the classical Riviera country club locations like you see in some of the top tier events that they're going to do after the cut line. He said for pace of play. So today you saw that they didn't end up finishing play. I think that they're trying to make it easy so that they can finish tomorrow. Because if you're going to have players that are bogeying, taking more time to finish the hole, they might not end up finishing and getting the cut done, right? But if they make players, give players easier conditions, they might be able to finish on time. And that's what they want, obviously, right? They don't want to be dealing with any sort of delay. That's interesting. That could be what they're doing there. And that's kind of in line with what the official was saying on the broadcast. Do you like Dave for a bounce back? Don't hate him for a bounce back. He's more than capable of doing it. I just have to say I don't like him in this kind of field. I think there's better options around him. Like when you have a Willie Z there, and you have Matt Fitzpatrick, and they're like the same kind of ownership. Sure, like he's like 2% lower owned than Fitz. He's about 6% lower owned than Will Zalatoris. It's hard to click on Jason Day when you have those guys as pivots. So you can certainly get there. He's going to be the lowest owned player in that range. So a lot of leverage to be had, but I don't know. Just guys that like a little bit more. Does Rahm win this? He's got incredibly lucky. I tend to think he probably doesn't because his driving was horrible. His approach play was pedestrian at best, and he gained at least through 14 holes. The last time I checked, it was over 3.5 strokes with the short game. So that's around the green plus putting. And then he made a chip in, I think, on the next hole. Then he made like a 30-footer there on his 16th hole. So I imagine those numbers only went up. So yeah, he could certainly win, right? If he figures out the off the tee play, then book it, right? He had his horrible rounds and he still shot 6 under par. Obviously could win the golf tournament, but if he hits the ball like that for the last 3 rounds, then no, he's not winning. Thoughts on Moronk? I like him. I'm going right back. Feels like he always gets those lucky bounces. Yep, and he did today. He hit multiple trees. He literally hit a tree on like his 14th hole. Was going to be behind like 5 sets of trees. Was going to have to take a drop from one of the little stands that they have, which of course is a free drop, but there was no solid place for him to try and take relief, right, and get anywhere near the hole, but hits the tree and bounces nearly back into the fairway. So just ridiculous. All right, let's get into the 7K range. So my favorite play in the 7K range is Tiger Woods. And this is going to get me in trouble because he's going to be chalk tomorrow. He's going to be 19% owned, and I do not care. What I saw over the last 6-7 holes there convinced me, okay? He told us going into the week that he felt like he was going to be competitive, and I called bullshit because what I saw at the PGA Championship was the same thing. He told us that he was feeling good and then went out there and laid an absolute egg. But this time around, he showed it, right? The leg held up. He got over there to the second half and played his best golf, right? It's not like he started hot and then towards the end kind of gave back a few strokes. It was the complete opposite of that. So I hate to say it, right? Like my highest exposed play, maybe not my favorite play, is going to be Tiger Woods because I'm going to have him in half my lineups. So 50% exposure over my 150 max for tomorrow. Going to have the big cap because I think you might need 50% to get leverage. I have him at 19.2% ownership. It's going to be next to impossible to tell what he actually comes in at. I mean, you might have just tons of casuals that want to play Tiger Woods and whatnot, which I understand, kind of being lured into that myself and whatnot. If you're playing the ownership game, if you're doing what I'm doing up top, right, and just fading the guys that are unnecessarily high owned, then don't play Tiger Woods, right? But perhaps my fandom's coming into it, but I'm letting you know what I'm doing, right? These streams, these picks are never meant to be like, oh, tail this at all costs. You're just going to print money or that sort of thing. I'm just going to be brutally honest with my exposure, right? And the brutally honest truth is I'm playing a bunch of Tiger Woods tomorrow. I'm riding them, right? I saw enough there on Thursday to feel like I can buy in on the big cat, especially because I don't have them in my 4-round contests. And I want to have a little sweat there in the morning. So $7,200, sign me up for Big Cat at 19.2%. And I guess by default, that would make him my favorite play here in the 7K range. If I was going to be a little bit more convicted about it, I really like KH Lee. I like his chances this week in general, right? An aggressive player. Sahith Theegala, relatively low owned. The Siwoo Kim and Keegan Bradley, right? They had horrible round ones. I love them as bounce back candidates, right? 4-6% owned respectively. These are the kind of players that I'm trying to get to here. So those would be my top kind of plays. But if you're talking exposure, it's going to be unfortunately Tiger Woods. We'll have to see. Maybe it'll be fortunately. Maybe we'll shoot a 64 tomorrow for God's sake. That Twitter would break if that happened, by the way. I'm not sure you could even log into Twitter if that would happen. Do you have any opinions on birdie or better matchups? We'll get to those later on, Nick. We're not at props yet, Nick. So if you're new to the channel here, new to the streams and whatnot, we do DFS and then we do props. So if you have any prop questions, you're gonna have to wait on those. Jay says Homa played amazing today. If he won, you wouldn't be surprised. Agreed. He's won here before. One thing I'll say about him is that his chipping could be a little bit spotty. So he's got to keep up the ball striking, right? He's got to continue to flush it down the fairway, continue to hit almost every green in regulation, but he's done that before. And we've seen him win multiple times using that exact kind of recipe. So yeah, wouldn't be surprised either. Agreed. Todd says, join late. Any other weather issues? I wouldn't call them weather issues. I'll go ahead and share my screen, show you. But there could be some wind gusts early. So Windfinder, kind of different than some of the other sites. They're calling from like 10 to noon. There to be like 20 to maybe 15-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Now, Willy Weather only has like a 3-mile-an-hour difference between the quote-unquote morning and afternoon wave. Weather Underground has no difference across the board. It's just flat weather. AccuWeather, I went through the entire board earlier. Same kind of thing, just flat across the board. So there could be slightly higher winds early in the morning, but I'm not counting on it. Windfinder has proven to be some of the, I should say, some of the lesser accurate predictions that we've seen. The lesser accurate meteorologists work over on that side. So I'm not going to take it too seriously. But yeah, maybe something to consider. Like I said, you never know. Maybe they're right. Ace says Woods is plus 152 on FanDuel to shoot a 70 or better. Luke, tell you to nuke this. So 70 counts, right? So 70 wouldn't be a push, is my understanding of that prop, Ace. So if you're telling me -1 is a win, right? Even par would be the loss, then yeah, I would take that Ace. And nuke, I don't know if I'd use that 4-letter word there, but yeah, I'd like that bet. You got to let me know about the push there. Let me know what the grading is on that. CV says, thoughts on Tiger winning this thing? Never say never. I think you hit the nail on the head there, CV, but highly unlikely. Probably not going to happen. But hey, I'm not going to say never because we saw in those last 3 holes what he can still do. Keith Mitchell is crazy sneaky long off the tee. Can he win this thing? I wouldn't even say that he's sneaky long, to be quite frank with you. He's just long as fuck off the tee. He's just an absolute striper of the golf ball. He's a big dude. I'll tell you in person, he's a big burly guy. He's got a really long swing arc too. So yeah, he's not sneaky long. He's just damn long to begin with. So definitely agree. Can he win this thing? Yes, because he's won under difficult conditions before. His first ever tour win was at the Honda Classic, where we'll be next week. Which, by the way, guys, I get tickets to the Bear Trap, which is like one of their hospitality like media center things that they do there. So I'm going to be able to sit there on 16, 17, like on the tee box, and they have complimentary butler service there at the Bear Trap. So looking forward to it. That's actually my mom works at the title sponsor for the event. Sorry, not the title sponsor, the main beneficiary for the event, which is a children's hospital down in Miami. And they all know, a lot of the higher executives. My mom's on the executive team at the hospital. Let the CEO, let a lot of the board members know that I do golf analysis. I'm like in the golf media and whatnot. And they hooked me up. So hats off if any of you are watching. I've heard a few of you guys watch my videos. So I appreciate you guys. That's going to be a lot of fun. Ace says, where do you find those lines? I think you're talking about for the FanDuel one. That was on FanDuel for the Tiger Woods one. But yeah, Ace got to let us know about the way they're grading that. Besides sponsorships, do golfers just not get paid if they don't win tournaments? That is correct. So that's why Live Golf is getting a lot of like moral backing from people that are looking at it from the business side, is that players are getting that guaranteed money. They're actually getting all their accommodations paid for, whether it's travel, they're buying them their private jets, they're flying their families out to events for them there with Live Golf, that kind of thing. So yeah, Ryan, that is true. It's kind of wild, right? When you think about it that way, for sure. 70 wins. Yes. You nuke that. And yeah, I'm looking up for that. Sounds legit. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, let's go, Mama Luke. Yeah, having a mom that's connected can be nice from time to time for a lot of dreams. Mama Luke is the greatest human being out there. One of these days, I got to get her on stream. I'm sure she'll be here for one of my streams, just lurking around the apartment, hanging out. Have her say hi. She's fantastic. She watches my streams too. So if you're watching these moms, hi. Damon says heat wave in New York broke 100 for the first time. Dude, congrats, man. I remember the first time I broke 100. That's a huge accomplishment. Just hat tip for that, dude. That's awesome. And he said thinking he might take Matt Fitzpatrick tour card. Yeah, you might as well take his tour card, man. We don't need Brace Face out there. He's dead to me after what he did to me over there for my DFS contest today. All right, anyways, let's get into this value tier range. Like I said, we got to get into props here in like a few minutes, so we'll make this quick. If you have any questions for DFS, get them in now. In terms of a value tier range, I like Corey Connors. I like ball strikers down here. So, I talked about Tiger, but like JT Poston, Russell Henley, guys that are going to be low owned, that are known for their approach play. Poston and Henley for their putting on this surface as well. So, guys you could take. Nick Hardy bounce back. I'm all in on it. Same thing with Billy Ho, just better players than their price and their ownership. Luke List, a good course fit. Kurt Kitayama, just playing well of late, and he's 2% owned, right? So there's not much more to it than that, right? He's in form and he's low owned, right? Makes sense for Showdown. Sepp Straka played well in round one, had no bogeys on the card, was -2 through 17 holes, ended up bogeying his 18th, so lost the bogey-free round, but I'm extremely encouraged by what I saw today. In fact, I faded him on prize picks for strokes, which he ended up going under on, which was surprising to me, but he went under on birdies, so only made, I believe, 2 birdies on the day. So we ended up hitting the under there, of course, but I like what we saw. He just could not make a putt. I mean, he missed multiple 10-footers. He missed a 5-footer at one point. So we kind of dodged a few bullets when it came to that for sure. But yeah, I like him for Showdown. I don't think he misses those tomorrow. Cam Davis, Trey Molnax, both played horribly today. But like I said earlier with Sam Burns, like these guys, they play for pride. The cut line could be like +1, especially with how difficult the course typically plays. It's going to be firmer and faster tomorrow. So when we get to the prop side, I'll talk about what I think the average score is going to be. But like these guys that are playing at 3-6 over par, they go out there, do what John Rahm or Max Homa did today, and they make the cut. So it's not impossible for them to make it. You'll see them at the very least try, and they're definitely going to be aggressive. I like Mackenzie Hughes. He started with a double bogey on his second hole. I believe he was 3 over par at one point, so he was kind of ejecting. I was not too happy about that. Ended up rallying to under par, made a few bogeys at the end to get back over, but fits this kind of course, right? Is actually relatively long off the tee, which helps as well. I do like guys like Cameron Champ. I have to say, Cameron Champ is like the ultimate popper. He's going to more than likely go out there, shoot over par, be the stinker in your lineup. But I'd say once every, maybe month and a half, 2 months, he goes out there and he shoots 7 under par. And at a course like the Genesis, which is a course, it's just, it does, I don't know the word for it. I guess it like rewards length. I don't even know the right word for it. You want length over accuracy, that's for sure. So yeah, I guess reward is probably the right word. It rewards his length. And you can miss all over the place. There's not water, right? It's not like there's a water hazard even on property. Now, you don't want to be hitting out of the trees, but you saw guys like John Rahm today miss almost every single fairway and then shoot 6 under par. You saw JT, for example, I think hit 3 fairways all day, shoot 3 under par, right? Guys like Rory McIlroy, right? I think he hit like 4 fairways all day, shot 4 under par. So Cameron Champ, this is the kind of course where you could see him have that pop performance. So, yeah, I'm taking a shot on him. It's a shot, right? He's definitely volatile, to say the least. Matthew Neesmith, I'm playing. Ches Reavie loves this course, so I'm getting to him and is there as well. Troy Merritt, Sean the Dark, I'd say Mark Hubbard, that same kind of player. Just there's guys down low that I play a lot more often than most, and it's just aggressive players. Like Chad Ramey, how many times have we seen this guy almost be first-round leader over the last 3 months, right? I mean, I can think of 2 times over here just since the start of 2023. So, those kind of players that are aggressive, that take aim at every single pin are guys that I'm looking to get to. Mark Hubbard checks that box. Troy Merritt is another one of those poppers that like out of nowhere, I'll go out there, shoot like 5-6 under par. And if they're going to be 0.3% owned, you can see 0.2% for Hubbard, 0.1% owned for somebody like Chad Ramey down there. Count me in, right? And kind of like Molinax and Cam Davis that I was talking about before, at +3, he can still make the cut, right? Shoot -2, that might be the cut there at +1, or shoot -3 or -4, and you're certainly going to make the weekend. These guys are more than incentivized to go out there and play their best. Let's go ahead, catch up on chat. We are going to hop into the lineup building process. So the last thing we'll touch on for DFS is going to be my top cash plays. Then afterwards, we're going to hop into the prop side, and I'll give you my live first reaction for the board. So let's take a look at cash real quick. If you have any DFS questions, get them in now. That's the last call on that end. In terms of cash, I think that taking like a John Rahm makes sense, but he is 11 grand, right? So if you're taking him up top, it is going to pinch you down in terms of your salary range. So maybe you go down, you take a Max Homa. Maybe your most expensive player is like a Xander Schauffele instead, right? So I think avoiding John Rahm might be the move for cash tomorrow. You can't go wrong taking him, of course, but just to show you the ramifications, if you go 11 grand and then $9,400 as your second man in, you're already down to $7,400, which means you can't take players in this 8K range, which I think is extremely strong for tomorrow, which might be a little bit too much opportunity cost. So if you start with a Homa and then maybe your second man in, let's say is a Zalatoris, let's put, maybe like a Hideki Matsuyama in, let's put Cam Young in this sort of cash lineup, you can take 5-6 players that you're more than confident in and round out a lineup that you feel comfortable with. And honestly, in cash, being comfortable with all 6 players is key, right? You don't want to have somebody in that lineup that you don't think is going to, at very least, right, shoot average for the day. So that's how I would handle cash. Like I said, if you want to take John Rahm, I understand it. It's just going to force you out of some of these mid-tier players. If you're looking at a GPP, right, just like I said before, if you're taking a McIlroy or a Patrick Cantlay, differentiate, right? Don't take them together, right? So maybe instead of taking a Rory McIlroy and Cantlay, you go Rory and then you take, let's see, Sam Burns, right, as a pivot there. Or if you want to go out there and you want to take Patrick Cantlay, maybe up top, like I mentioned earlier, you go to, Scotty Scheffler, right? Who's going to be like 13% owned as opposed to the 20% owned Rory McIlroy. So just that's how I would handle the slate. I mean, obviously, I'd say John Rahm, he's going to be relatively high owned. Morikawa, he's getting some ownership too. So you want to be careful with those kind of players. Down there in the 8K range, I mean, Adam Scott was getting quite a bit of ownership. Those are all the kind of players where, like, at most, I want 2 of them in a lineup. And ideally, I probably want at most 1 of them in a lineup. So just keep that in mind on that side. Let's see what's going on in terms of questions. PD says Nate Lashley tomorrow. I think you missed the train on him, honestly. I think you're kind of chasing if you played Nate Lashley in round 2. He had a great round today, that's for sure. You better catch the plays before bumps this time. Yeah, you got to turn those noties on, man. Then you should be able to catch them. Ben says on Showdown, what's the lowest salary you'll dip down into? 6 grand. Dead bottom of the board. I have Chad Ramey in the player poll. Ace says every time I forget Adam Svensson is in a tournament. He's either leading or at the top of the board. Yeah, he has a penchant for going out there and being first round leader. I mean, I think at the 3M Open, he was like first round leader, almost ended up missing the cut. So he's far from a done deal right after he has the good first round. But you're right. I ended up playing him this week. So it's like the first time I'm on the right side of that equation. But there are guys that are just like that. I mean, one that comes to mind for me has to be Rory. I mean, typically I'm on the wrong side of Rory McIlroy. This week, it's definitely to be decided how that one's going to go out for me. But yeah, everyone has their guy. Brace face used to be him for me, and it's looking like it might be like that again, right? I don't like Brace face because I never get him right, and he's a core pick for me this week in 2 over par. So he better turn it around if that's going to change. Thoughts on JT at plus 148 to shoot a 67 or better? Ooh, 67's 4 under par. I probably wouldn't bet that. Plus 145 is probably not enough. Sorry, plus 148, probably not enough juice for me. And you are directly on time, man. We're actually hopping into props right now. So let's go ahead and do that now that we're through all the questions. And this is pretty much a live reaction here. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and let me know. I've got everything set up to go ahead and enter props here as well. Prize Picks, by the way, has taken me from $1,000 limit a day on props. It took me down to $500 a few weeks ago, and now I'm at $300 a day. So I can't enter more than $300 on props. So I have an hour until like the quote unquote next day is over. So I'm gonna enter a few slips here on stream, I would imagine, and then after midnight, I can enter another $300. So that's kind of like how I get around the system. So it's unfortunate, but that's what we're dealing with at this point. So the strokes board, it looks kind of similar to round one. I have to say, I mean, guys like Xander were at 69 and a half, right? Homa was at 69 and a half. The guys at 70 all look pretty similar. And I guess it makes sense, right? The scoring average was even par. That's what I was projecting for. It seems like that's what Prize Picks was kind of projecting for too. Now they were off on like 0.5 to 1 stroke on a few players. And that's the same kind of situation that we're getting here. So outside of the pin locations, which I'm going to go ahead and bring up right now, I know we had Damon mention those before. But let's see if there's anything trickier. They look a little bit easier because maybe that sways us in one direction or the other. 1 second. There we go. All righty. So here are the pin locations. It looks like there's not nearly as many of them tucked. Most of them are like 9 paces off the side. You can see hole number 1's 5 paces off, but it's a front pin. Hole 2 looks a little tricky. It's 4 paces off the left. One thing worth noting is hole 1 is a par 5, right? It's only 500 yards. So though it's a quote unquote tough pin, it's not going to be a tough hole. Hole 2 might be a little dicey, but like look at 3, right? 7 paces off the right, 9 paces off the left on hole 4, a center pin on hole 5. Hole 6, that back left pin, that's a par 3. There's a backstop on that. The whole back left of that green slopes from back to front. And essentially, if you're long there by 5 to 10 yards, you can still hit it to 4 or 5 feet at that pin. So 6, going to be plenty of birdies. 7 is like in the center of the green. 8, it looks like kind of like I was mentioning before, they're going to try and take it a little bit easier on these guys tomorrow to try and speed up pace of play. They weren't able to finish today. They don't want to have any sort of delay there with making the cut line on Saturday. And it kind of looks like we're getting those moving day pins. I mean, look at 16, right? Literally in the center of the green. 18 looks like a relatively straightforward pin. I mean, just there are a few tucked ones. I mean, like what 11 looks relatively tucked. 17 doesn't look that easy. But compared to round one, they look significantly easier. And you can see this guy over on the right, Matt Smith, goes tucked. Complete. I don't know if I agree with Matt Smith over there. They say hole number 10. Hole 10 is always going to suck. Yeah, I guess that's worth noting. Hole 10, that's one of the worst pins in golf. That back right pin is not fun. The play for that, though, is if you hit it in this front right bunker, you have enough room to get it there and keep it on the green. So as long as players know that and they take the smart approach there on hole number 10, I do think that you're going to see more birdies there tomorrow than you saw for today, because the pin for round 1 was in the like middle left of the green, and there's a slope right next to the bunker there, actually just below the bunker on the graphic there, that takes balls off the green. Towards the back of the green, it's a little bit more fortified. Like you're not going to have that roll off area because there's the bunkers right there. Might see a few more birdies. That's worth noting there too. So getting into this board, like I said, it looks relatively fairly priced here. So let's take a look around the board before we go ahead and click anything in. For birdies are better, a lot of similar prices. It's worth noting, I saw this before, Hideki's at 3.5 now. Like my instant gut feel reaction feels like the over on Hideki makes sense, but I'll go ahead and click him out. We'll wait until to make him an official pick there. But just on my first glance at the board, that looked like a piece of value. You could go back to Tom Hoagie. Of course, he had the great day yesterday. It's looking like a similar kind of board, and with low wins projected for Friday, right, on most of the sites that we're looking at, it's probably a fair board, right? There's probably going to be a few unders that we can take, a few overs that we can take in either category. It's mostly going to come down to form, right? Looking at who was striping the ball in round 1. You know, who had the best approach stats, who was somebody that maybe got a little bit unlucky in round 1, right? I'm not talking about you, John Rahm, right? On the opposite end of that spectrum. Those are the kind of things that we're looking at. In terms of greens regulation, I would expect a lot of these unders to hit. Now, it looks like Prize Picks has slightly adjusted for it, but even at 11 greens, I think they might be projecting these guys just a little bit too high. The historical average is closer to 10.5 greens, and the greens this year are a lot closer to the firmness that we're used to seeing. Now, they're not quite as firm as they may have been like 4 or 5 years ago at the Genesis, because of they got a ton of rain in January. If you guys haven't heard, on the West Coast, they've just been battered by storms for the first like 2-3 weeks here of 2023. But they have had no rain the last 2 weeks. So it's starting to dry out. I would imagine by Saturday, Sunday, the course might start to run like lightning, right? Might start to run like what you used to see at the Genesis, before they started to get all this rain. But these greens numbers are way too high. It's like they're projecting them based on what you saw there in 2022, which was after huge rainstorms. So I don't know. We'll find a few feeds on there. It looks like, perhaps, I mean, I guess like Jason Day under, but like he's at 11. There's a few guys at 11 and a half, even guys at 12, like these elite tier guys like Xander, Rory, even they're at 12 greens of regulation. It's not like I expect him to play poorly. Like JT, right? JT hit 7 out of 18 greens today, 7 greens, and he shot -3, right? So if guys are able to only hit 7 greens and still put up a respectable score, obviously like taking unders here is going to be the plus EV move. I know that John Rahm, he hit 14 out of 18 greens. He was like, I think, the best player in the field when it came to greens and regulation. I know that I think Tiger actually hit 12 greens regulation, which hugely surprising. I thought he was going to hit like 9-10 greens. So here at 10 greens in regulation, like that feels like a fair line. Yesterday I faded him at 10 and a half, or at least I told you guys on stream that that might be a good idea. Probably wouldn't do it again based on what we saw in round 1. So that's the idea on greens regulation. Let's see if there's any questions. Then we'll put together a little slip together. I'm here for the live stream. Let's see. So we have Todd who says, I feel like Fitz and Hideki are good bounce back candidates at 70. So yeah, let's take a look. I want to take a look at underdog too and do some comparisons. So, we're not taking props that we can shop over there and get better lines. So we'll take a look at that too. But I tend to agree, especially with Hideki. So let me do that. Let me see if underdog has their lines up. So 1 second here, boys. They do have them up. So let's see if they have Hideki and Fitz up. They have Hideki at 70 and they have Fitz at 70 as well. So they have them even across the board, no matter what site you're on there, at 70 strokes. I think the Hideki is the one that I'd prefer. But yeah, I think they're both decent bounce back candidates. They both have a bunch of push equity. The field average, right, was 71 strokes. That's what I'm projecting for tomorrow. Maybe even slightly easier with those pin locations we were looking at. And Fitz and Hideki are borderline elite tier players, right? So they're projecting probably right around a stroke better than the field average. So I think the projections are relatively accurate, but I would definitely lean towards their under. So I'm not going to put them in as an official play. In fact, I think I prefer this Hideki over Burgess and Better to the under over there on strokes. So I'm going to go ahead and click that one in, but definitely understand the play, particularly if you're looking for that push equity, because of course at 3.5 birdies, we don't have that push in our back pocket. It's just that I think that the over equity there at 3.5 birdies is just a little bit higher. You drafted Rory, Burns, Hovland, Mitchell, Rose, and Bradley. Okay. I like it. Yeah, I think that's a decent draft. I think you're talking about the underdog drafts that they're doing. Lots of firepower, especially with those first 4 players. Rose and Bradley, decent late round draft picks too. Yeah, man, that's a great play. What happened to Tony Finau today? Do you think he can have a bounce back round? Yeah, so he played poorly. I faded him on DFS. I did play him over there on Prize Picks because, like, from the 50-50 perspective, I thought he definitely should have gone out there, shot at least 2 under or better, right? He kills this golf course. But from a DFS standpoint, when he was going to be like the highest owned player on the slate, or at least up there in the top 5, I didn't like it. I do like his chances to bounce back. He's going to be relatively low owned. So if you're talking about for DFS, I like him even more. On the prop side, let's see what we've got for props. It's hard to say without knowing his lines, right? Like I said, the board got posted right before I went live. So this is a live reaction here. So 69 and a half strokes. Okay. What was he? 4 birdies, I would imagine. Yeah, 4 birdies or better. That's tough. I would probably fade both of those. I probably just wouldn't touch them personally. If you were going to take anything, the push equity there at 4 birdies, Does make it a little bit better, right? Make it a little bit more comfortable to take. But yeah, I don't know. I wish we just had like maybe 70 strokes on Tony. Like if we had that, I would absolutely hammer it right over there on Prize Picks. If we had him at 3.5 birdies, it would be like the first prop I'd go ahead and put into slips. But at 4 and 69.5 strokes, the edge is just ever so smaller, right? And just maybe not something I'm running to throw in. All right, peace out, Ace. Love that you came by, supported the stream. Underdog just posted bogey lines about 5 to 10 minutes ago. Let's take a look at those actually. I don't know, the bogey lines, they're hit or miss. I've had some success over there on Underdog with those. Had a few slates that have gone the opposite direction, unfortunately, with those. So let's see what we've got. Bunch of guys at 2.5, lower tier guys at 3 bogeys. That seems about right. Yeah, I'm probably avoiding the bogey props. Those seem about right to me. I haven't had the best luck with them, to be honest with you. Tiger at 73.5 under you like a lot. I do too. I think the 3 birdie line makes sense. I think you could take the over, kind of like the Hideki strokes, right? Like if you like the push equity, maybe take the 3 birdies or better line. But 73.5, maybe he doesn't have under, not over. Maybe he doesn't have the hot putter tomorrow. So maybe he only makes like 3 birdies and pushes that line. But given how good he is around the green, how strategic Tiger Woods is, wouldn't surprise me if, obviously he went under the 73.5. So yeah, I like that too. Like I said, I'm playing him in a bunch of my DFS lineups. So yeah, 73.5 strokes, sign me up. Fowler looked enticing. I know he only bogeyed once today. He's the same projection as Scheffler, Cantlay, etc. Good point. So let me look at his strokes on here. I think you're talking about for bogeys. So let's bring up the full picture, get an idea. Ricky Fowler. So he's at 70 strokes, same as like Fitz and Hideki, and 2.5 bogeys. Yikes. I couldn't take the under on his bogeys if that's what you're asking about. Yeah, that's probably a fade for me if you're talking about the bogey line. But 70 strokes, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll be enticed into taking BDR. We'll have to see. We need all the VIP picks. Those will be on Patreon later. And I know you're on there, Frank. So check those out there. Oak says your best lineup has Morikawa, M, Siwoo, Mitchell, Kim, and Hoagie. Ooh, Siwoo. Yeah, Siwoo's not off to a hot start. I'm glad I'm not there with you, Oak, with the Siwoo exposure, but he could still turn it around, right? The cut line's probably going to be like +1 or even par. Just hope that he goes out there and does something there, right? Shoots 4 or 5 under par. He's more than capable. I'll be rooting for you, Oak. That'd be pretty sweet. Griffin says Tiger 3 birdies or better is too low. I prefer the strokes, but I tend to agree. Petey says thoughts on Fratelli. I think he's a good DFS play. Obviously volatile, not the safest play, but I think he's got the upside. Todd says general question: do you like birdies are better versus scoring? So yeah, strokes versus birdies are better. Those are the 2 categories I like the most. And there's not really one category that I prefer. It usually depends on the slate, right? Because there are times where Prize Picks will price the strokes too high or the strokes too low, or the birdies are better, higher or lower for the same kind of thing. So it depends on the pricing. It changes slate to slate. You're saying like when score is 70. So I don't necessarily understand how you worded that question, but to answer it, it changes slate to slate, and at least answering to the best of my ability here. And it depends on the player, right? So like there are guys that are more consistent with strokes than they are birdies or better, like a Matt Fitzpatrick. So Matty Fitz, for example, a low birdie percentage player, so a little bit less likely to go out there and make birdies, but he's also a low bogey percentage player, right? He's one of the more just par-driven players that we have. You need a player to make a par, sign up Matt Fitzpatrick. He's got the job done for you. So I actually like him more for strokes kind of props than I do for birdies or better, because that's kind of his play style, right? He loves saving par. He loves grinding out a score. So you know how I like Hideki over 3.5 birdies, whereas I like, obviously Matt Fitzpatrick under on strokes. That's the reason why, because Hideki, on the other hand, is the opposite, right? He's a little bit more volatile. He's more prone to go out there and make bogeys and a bunch of birdies and mix those in, which makes him a better take over here for birdies or better. So I think that's a good example to hammer that home for you, but it depends for sure. Feel like you've never asked Luke, but who's your favorite active golfer? Maxwell knows it's Jordan Spieth. No doubt about it, Jordan Spieth. He's an absolute stud. So let's go ahead and finish out this card. Again, if you have questions, feel free to ask away with them. I like these two. I'm actually going to keep the Fitz on here and the Hideki. Let's add in Tiger under strokes. And then let's find a few fades over here with greens regulation. So, and actually, we can look at strokes too, the bottom of the strokes board. So we've got these three in here. English over strokes, actually probably not the worst play. I mean, even Woodland over strokes, I'm not hating. I know he played well today, and I know his approach play was pretty solid today, but Gary Woodland, inconsistent at best, and that's putting it lightly. Let's take a look at the bottom of the GIR board. Just so many elite tier guys that it's making it a little bit more difficult to fade them, particularly the guys that are 11.5. That feels relatively fair. This board's tough. I wish they gave us more lower tier guys, right? I like that we're getting to bet on the best players in the world, but when it comes to trying to find fades, sometimes it's nice to have these lower tier options, right? So let's see what we've got. Let's see what we can work with. Cook something up here. Sanjay under, Tom Kim even under birdies. It's tempting. We got to find at least one fade to make this work, right? Because if we were going to enter this card, we're only going to get a 4x payout. We could just go with the 4-leg flex. So we could just add one more positive stance. So let's see what we can do here. Let's find one more positive stance and go with it. We already have Tiger Woods on there, which I already went over. I absolutely love the play. At 4 birdies, I mean, Tony Finau, I know I mentioned that one before. I like that slightly more than the strokes line that he has. Yeah, because the 3-leg flex we're not going to do, right? It's a 2.2x payout, just probably not worth it in this circumstance, especially because we only have one prop that can push. If we had 3 props that could push, I would be more willing to do that, which actually, speaking of, we could do that. Actually, let's do this. I'll go over this card and I'll tell you why I like this card. Okay. All right. So this is what we're going to do here. We're going to do a 3-leg flex here with these 3 players. So I just changed it up, right? I changed it from Tiger strokes to Tiger birdies, and I changed it from Hideki birdies to Hideki strokes to make them all have a 0 at the end. So there's no 0.5s on the props here, because if we do a 3-leg flex and we hit 3 of 3, right, we're going to get the 2.25x, which is actually kind of what we don't want to happen here. What we're hoping happens is that one of these pushes and that we get the full payout for a 2-leg flex if they end up pushing, right? So if these were all fades, for example, let me show you a better example, I suppose. If we do this for a 4-leg card, it's even better. This is why I want to add another one. So we might still try to find a 4-leg card to add here. Is if you go here and try to do a power play, you're only going to get a 7x payout, right? They're going to absolutely shaft you on the payout structure there. If you do the 4-leg flex, you actually get a higher payout for getting 4 out of 4 correct. So if you do it for the 3-leg, you don't lose in terms of payout if one of these pushes. So that's why I wanted to make it the 3 ones here in terms of a 0 payout. If one of them pushes, it just goes to a 2-leg power play, and it's going to pay out regular 3x. So you're not going to get a huge decrease in your payout. But let's find a fourth. Let's find a 4th prop, and let's put them back to the original props I was taking, just because we are going to add that last prop. Let's see. Don't hate Ricky. I know somebody mentioned him earlier, right? He's what, 70 strokes, or is he 70.5 on Prize Picks? If he's 70.5, ooh. If he was 70.5, I would have taken Ricky, that's for sure. But that's unfortunate. Let's find one. I don't love a lot of what I'm seeing, to be quite frank with you guys. A lot of the board seems relatively fairly priced. Let me get a sip of my drink and we'll find something though. Like, I'm debating taking an under here, but I don't think we need one. We could look at matchups. So I know people are going to want to look at matchups at some point. So let's just take a look at the matchup board. By the way, I hate matchups. This is your PSA that I do on every single video when it comes to props. Matchups, by far the lowest hit rates of any category you're going to find. But every once in a while, you find a diamond in the rough. So I'll at least give it its due diligence. We'll look at the matchup board. I know we had a question on it earlier too. The matchup against Doug Gim, I don't love. Probably fade that. You always fade Cam Young. Can't play against him in a matchup. Just way too scary. A lot of these ones make sense. The Rom versus Hovland is intriguing. I have to say, but I do think that Rom comes back to earth, so maybe you avoid that one. Colin versus Mitchell. Okay. Okay, we found a decent prop here. This Phenom versus Dietrich might get me to bite actually. So let's put that in the hopper just in case. Let's see what else we've got though. Probably a lot more fades here. Just guys I'm probably not jumping on. Yeah, it's looking like that Phenom prop might be the matchup I take because I don't hate that at all. Considering just the talent gap and then the aggressiveness difference. Like Tony Finau is one of the highest birdie percentage players on tour and has been for like the last 5 years, like even before he was an elite tier player. So I really like that matchup actually. Yeah, let's go ahead and go with this. So this will be the 4-man card we're going with. If you add this in, you're still going to get the lower payout. So that's why we're going to go with the flex play here. And I'm going to run it for $100. So let's go ahead and enter that in. So that's the card that I'm going with here for the video. Of course, if you guys want all of the props I'm taking, you want a write-up, you want all of the averages from round one, you want a look at my projected strokes for round two, all that sort of fun stuff, make sure to check out the Patreon page. I'll be posting that on there, along with all of the other props that I decide to take. Over there in Underdog, I'll also be posting slips for that. So keep an eye out for that. So that's honestly all I've got for the stream. Unless there's any questions down in chat, I'm going to hop on out of here. It's already 11:20, and I'm sure my loud booming voice is keeping up my neighbors. So it's probably best we cut it off here soon. So let's see what we've got down there in chat. Where are we at? I got you, Todd, of course. I feel like Cooch over, he could do that again. Yeah, he's 3.5 birdies, right? So you definitely lean on the over. I'm going to fade it, though. I don't know if I can trust the old man. DD says Hideki didn't birdie any of the par fives today, and he still had 3. Yeah, and he kills this golf course. Like, he loves Riviera Country Club. So you would have to think that he would be able to figure that out for sure. Hoagie got the birdies with ease. Yeah, that was one of the more sweat-free props that we've had for quite some time. I loved that. He was actually at the top of the leaderboard for quite some time. That was pretty wild to see too. Tom Kim under GIR. I probably fade it on its new number. Right, was he 11.5 now? At 12.5, it was something there for round one. I think it's a little bit more fair now. He is one of the better iron players on tour. So I would probably just stay away from it. Joseph says there were some back 9 props listed as holes 10 through 18. Do you make any of those plays on Patreon? I didn't today. So I was busy watching golf with buddies. I wasn't really sitting there on Prize Picks. If I see any value, if there's any cards I'm entering there on golf, they're always posted on Patreon. So if I see any value, I will. Last week, they had the whole 16 through 18 props that they were doing, where I was adding a lot of props late. So yeah, there were a lot of cards I was doing like that last week. I didn't do it for round one though. Just there was no exposure there for myself, so nothing to post. But if I do see any value, that is typically something I do. Is Kitayama a play? I love him for DFS. Absolutely, Pete. He's in form, right? He's at even par at this point, so it's not like he's playing poorly, and he's low owned and cheap. So yeah, he checks enough boxes for me. I'll definitely be there. That's all I've got here for the stream, guys. Best of luck with all of your slips, all of your DFS lineups if you're going in that direction. We'll be going live for rounds 3 and 4 as well. It'll be during the nighttime too. So it's not going to be an early morning stream. We won't be going live at 8, 9 a.m. Just not enough time, right? They're going to be teeing off at 6:40 local time, so 9:40 over here on the East Coast. Just wanted to make sure I got some content out there that everybody can at least consume, right? If you're on the West Coast, they've got the live stream tonight. If you're on the East Coast, you can wake up early, catch the replay of the stream. So hopefully you find it helpful from that perspective. But before you're hopping out of here, go ahead and smash that like button. If you aren't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so you don't miss any of the content in the future. I'm really looking forward to the weekend. Hopefully Big Cat is a part of the picture. Hopefully we're talking about him as a round 3 showdown play. That would be pretty sweet. And hopefully next week at the Honda can be as much of a banger week as this one is. I know the field isn't going to be there, but I'll be there in person. We'll have the Bear Trap tickets as well. Should be a blast and hopefully a profitable one there too. So best of luck. Like I said, I will catch you guys later. And yeah, got to get the prize pick stuff up. So we'll be getting right into that.